Mia had spent years quietly working behind the scenes, always staying in the background. She was used to observing, not speaking up. But today was different. As the meeting started, she could feel the shift. The CEO, a man with decades of experience, turned to her and said, "Mia, we're waiting on your thoughts." Her heart pounded in her chest. No one had ever really asked for her opinion before. Her mouth went dry, but she forced herself to speak. "I believe we can change the direction of this project," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "Not just improve it, but transform it. If we do this right, we can lead the market, not just follow it." For a moment, the room fell silent. The weight of expectation pressed down on her. But she didn't back down. She had spent too many years hiding behind others' voices. This was her time. "Let's do it," she said, and with that, the room shifted. No one spoke at first, but the eyes of every person around her were now locked onto her. Tables were turned. Mia returned to her desk after the meeting, feeling a mix of exhaustion and disbelief. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on her chest. No one had ever asked for her to lead, let alone present ideas at such a level. But the room was different now. She was different. The decision wasn't just about the project. It was about her. For so long she had watched others take the lead, hesitant to speak up, unsure of whether her voice mattered. But today, that had changed. She allowed herself a moment of reflection before diving into the work. There was still a mountain ahead, but for the first time, Mia felt like she could climb it. A week passed. Mia's project was now the focal point of her team. The spotlight was on her, and she could feel the pressure mounting. It was one thing to speak up once, but could she do it again? Could she stand firm? When the time came to present, her nerves were palpable. But Mia took a deep breath, remembering the quiet words of encouragement her colleague Sam had given her. "Mia, just stay true to your vision. You've already proven yourself." Mia stepped forward, her words steady as she began the presentation. This time, she didn't wait for permission. She was already in charge. The meeting didn't go as smoothly as she hoped. Criticism came fast and hard, each comment a reminder of how much further she had to go. For a moment, Mia felt the familiar sting of self-doubt. But she didn't let it consume her. "Thank you for your feedback," Mia said, her voice measured despite the sting. "I'll make the necessary adjustments." The words were difficult to say, but they felt right. She wasn't here to prove herself to them. She was here to prove to herself that she could succeed, even if the road was bumpy. Days later, Mia stood in front of her colleagues again, this time with an improved plan. The feedback was tough, but she had embraced it and refined her ideas. As she presented the new proposal, her voice was steady, her confidence unwavering. When the CEO spoke, his words were approving. "Well done, Mia. This is exactly what we need." Mia smiled faintly. She didn't need the validation, but it felt like a quiet victory. She had proven something to herself. And that was enough. Mia woke up the next day with a sense of uncertainty still lingering in her chest. Despite the approval, despite the acknowledgement, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just stepped into a larger world, one that expected more from her. The next morning, as she walked into the office, she was greeted by familiar faces, but it all felt different. There was a subtle shift in the way people looked at her, the way they interacted with her. The weight of their expectations was palpable. She had been the quiet one for so long, and now she was being thrust into a role she wasn't sure she was ready for. It was one thing to be noticed, it was another to live up to what others thought she could be. Her colleague, Sam, noticed her hesitation as they passed in the hallway. "Don't overthink it," Sam said with a grin. "You've got this." Mia forced a smile, but her mind was spinning. She knew she had the capability, the ideas, but self-doubt crept in like a quiet storm. Could she really do this? Was she truly meant for this leadership role, or was it just a fluke? As the week progressed, Mia felt the pressure mounting. She was now expected to lead meetings, to set the tone, to guide her team through the project. But with every passing day, her self-doubt grew. She sat in her office late at night, reviewing her work, rereading the reports, wondering if it was good enough. She had the ideas, the vision, but she kept second-guessing every decision. Her fear wasn't that she would fail, but that she would disappoint everyone who was now looking at her to succeed. "Am I ready for this?" she muttered to herself. The silence of the office was deafening, as if her thoughts echoed louder than the quiet hum of the lights. The imposter syndrome that had always lurked in the background of her mind had now come to the forefront. What if the success from her previous presentation was just luck? What if they found out she wasn't as capable as they thought? The breaking point came one afternoon when the pressure finally broke through. Mia was in the middle of a presentation to her team when one of her colleagues, David, pointed out a flaw in her proposal. It wasn't major, but to Mia, it felt like a crack in the entire foundation she had been building. Her mind spiraled, her thoughts racing. She tried to keep it together, but the words felt stuck in her throat. "Can we go over this again?" David said, his tone casual, but Mia could hear the undertone of critique. "Sure," she replied, her voice shaky. "Let's go over it again." But inside, she felt like she was sinking. The weight of the expectations, the pressure to be perfect, had caught up with her. She couldn't just push through it this time. This wasn't just about the project anymore. This was about her. As the meeting ended, Mia locked herself in the restroom, her heart pounding. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, feeling small, overwhelmed, and helpless. "I'm not enough," she whispered to herself. For the first time in years, Mia wasn't sure she could keep going. Later that day, Sam found Mia sitting alone in the break room, staring out the window. "You okay?" Sam asked, sitting down beside her. "I'm just not sure I can do this," Mia replied, her voice quiet. "I keep thinking I'm going to mess everything up." Sam didn't respond right away. Instead, they sat in silence, the sound of coffee cups clinking faintly in the background. Finally, Sam spoke. "You've always been hard on yourself, but you've gotten this far because you're capable, Mia. You don't have to be perfect." Mia shook her head. "I don't know if I can keep doing this." "Then take a step back," Sam suggested. "Breathe. You're allowed to have doubts, but don't let them paralyze you. You've got what it takes. You just need to trust yourself." Mia didn't respond right away. But Sam's words, simple as they were, started to sink in. Maybe she didn't have to be perfect. Maybe the key was just to keep moving forward, even when she didn't feel ready. The next morning, Mia stood at her desk, looking out the window, the rising sun casting golden light over the city. She thought about what Sam had said. The pressure would always be there, but she didn't have to carry it alone. She didn't have to be perfect. She just had to do her best. And that was enough. Her phone buzzed with a message from her team. "Can we meet to go over the revisions?" Mia took a deep breath. And for the first time in a long while, she didn't hesitate. She was ready. It wasn't about being flawless. It was about continuing despite the fear, despite the doubts. She walked into the meeting room with her head held high, her shoulders square. She would face this challenge head on, knowing that the journey was more important than the destination. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Mia's presentation had impressed the team, but with success came expectations, and soon every decision she made was scrutinized. Every move she made felt like it was under a microscope. The pressure mounted, not just from the company, but from within herself. She began second-guessing every choice. She found herself working late into the night, revisiting every report, every suggestion. She was making progress, but it felt like every step forward led to a dozen more questions. Could she keep this up? Was her vision truly the right one? What if, despite all her hard work, she wasn't the right person for the job? "Why can't I get this right?" Mia muttered to herself one evening, her hands shaking as she stared at the computer screen. The clock on the wall ticked louder, marking each passing second, the weight of the world bearing down on her. A few days later, Mia's worst fear began to materialize. She overheard a conversation in the break room between two of her colleagues, David and Claire. They were discussing the project, but their words stung like a slap. "I don't know why Mia keeps making these changes," David said, his voice laced with frustration. It's like she doesn't trust anyone else's opinion. She's too controlling. Claire hesitated before responding. Maybe, but we can't deny that the project is moving forward. Mia stood frozen, the words cutting through her like a knife. She hadn't realized how much her decisions had been affecting her team, but now, hearing the doubts in their voices, she felt like a fraud. She didn't want to be a dictator. She just wanted the project to succeed. Was she losing control of the very thing she was trying to lead? Was she pushing people away without even realizing it? The next few days felt like a blur. Mia couldn't shake the conversation she had overheard. She was torn between two voices, one urging her to stand firm, to keep pushing forward, and another telling her to back off, to soften her approach. The team's feedback was becoming increasingly critical, and Mia felt herself retreating inward. She was afraid that her leadership was slipping through her fingers, afraid that her colleagues would never truly accept her. Every small misstep felt like a confirmation of her worst fears. Sam, noticing her distance, pulled her aside one day after a meeting. "Mia," Sam said, "you're letting them get to you. You can't lead by trying to please everyone. You have to stay true to your vision, even if it makes people uncomfortable." Mia's throat tightened, but she didn't say anything. What Sam didn't understand was that Mia wasn't trying to please anyone. She was trying to prove she wasn't a fraud. And the pressure was slowly breaking her down. It wasn't until one sleepless night that Mia had a moment of clarity. She was reviewing a report when the weight of her own thoughts came crashing down. Subject, her career, her identity, all of it had been built on a foundation of self-doubt and fear. She had spent so much time trying to meet others' expectations that she had lost sight of her own values. Mia stood up, the realization hitting her like a jolt. She wasn't here to be perfect. She wasn't here to win everyone's approval. She was here to make a difference. And that meant being true to herself, even if it wasn't always comfortable. The fear of failure had been controlling her decisions, but now it was time to lead with conviction. She wasn't going to shrink back anymore. Mia walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. The darkness outside didn't feel as overwhelming anymore. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of peace. The uncertainty would never disappear, but she could still make it work. The following day, Mia called a meeting with her team. She had made her decision. She would no longer try to please everyone. She would lead with integrity, even if it made people uncomfortable. She wasn't going to back down. As the meeting began, she addressed the group with quiet authority. "I know there have been challenges along the way. I know I haven't always been easy to work with. But I'm here because I believe in this project. I believe in all of you. And I'm not backing down from that belief." The room was silent for a moment, but then, one by one, the team members began to nod in agreement. They could see it, the quiet strength in her voice. This wasn't just about the project anymore. It was about the team, about Mia's leadership. And for the first time she felt the shift. She wasn't just leading, she was inspiring. Mia had finally begun to feel the weight of leadership shift from her shoulders. Her team was responding well, and the project was gaining momentum. But as she prepared for another meeting, something unexpected happened. A message flashed across her screen, a confidential report from a source she didn't recognize. It was an internal memo, detailing her project's progress. It wasn't the content that shocked her, though. It was the signature at the bottom, her own name. She stared at the screen, unable to comprehend it. This wasn't the first time someone had attempted to undermine her, but this felt different. Someone within her own team had been secretly feeding information to the higher-ups about her work. Her gut clenched with a mix of betrayal and confusion. Who could have done this? The realization hit her like a wave. She wasn't just leading a project. She was fighting a battle on two fronts, one with her team, and the other with forces she hadn't even seen. Mia spent hours going over the report, trying to make sense of it. The more she read, the clearer it became. There were details only someone from her inner circle would know, information she had shared during confidential team meetings. It wasn't just an error. It was a deliberate act. When she confronted her team, one by one, the guilt was palpable. No one fessed up immediately, but the tension in the room was suffocating. It wasn't until later that afternoon, in a private conversation with David, that the truth came out. "I'm sorry, Mia. I didn't want you to find out this way," David said, his voice low and defeated. "I thought I was doing what was best for the company. But the truth is, I've been undermining you. I didn't trust that you could handle it. I thought I had to make sure the project would succeed, no matter what." Mia's world felt like it was spinning. David, someone she had worked so closely with, had betrayed her. The weight of his confession was like a blow to the chest. "I did it because I thought I knew better," David continued, his voice barely a whisper. "But I was wrong. I should have trusted you." The betrayal cut deeper than Mia had expected. She spent the next few days in a fog, replaying the conversation with David, over and over. The trust she had placed in him, the respect they had built over years of collaboration, all shattered in a moment. Her colleagues sensed the shift in her, but no one dared to bring it up. Mia felt isolated, even more so than before. Every decision now carried the weight of suspicion. Could she really trust anyone on her team? Was there anyone else who felt the same way David did? Sam, ever the voice of reason, found her late one evening after work. "Mia, don't let this one mistake define you. You're still the leader of this team. You have the ability to turn this around." But Mia wasn't so sure. The seeds of doubt had already been planted. How could she lead with conviction when the ground beneath her was so shaky? Things took a turn for the worse when Mia was called into an impromptu meeting with the higher-ups. She expected it to be another routine check-in, but as soon as she walked in, the atmosphere was tense. The CEO and a few other executives sat at the table, their expressions unreadable. "Mia, we need to have an honest conversation," the CEO said, his voice cool. "We've noticed some discrepancies in the progress of your project. It seems like there's been some miscommunication between you and your team." Mia's stomach dropped. Her first instinct was to defend herself, but she knew this wasn't just about her. This was about the team, about the trust that had been broken. She sat down, her mind racing, wondering how much David had already told them. "We've decided to make some changes to the leadership structure," the CEO continued, his words like a knife. "We're going to need to reassess your role in this project." Mia's world seemed to collapse in that moment. The trust, the success, all of it was unraveling. She had no idea how to fix this. The betrayal had cost her more than just confidence. It was now threatening her place in the company. In the days that followed, Mia was faced with a choice. She could walk away, let the betrayal win, and let her career crumble under the weight of failure. Or she could fight back, not just for herself, but for the team that still needed her leadership. The decision wasn't easy. The weight of the betrayal, the doubts, the fears, all of them pressed down on her shoulders. But as she sat alone in her office that evening, the quiet of the room surrounding her, Mia realized something. She wasn't just fighting for her job. She was fighting for her integrity, for the person she had worked so hard to become. If she walked away now, David would have won. And she couldn't let that happen. With newfound determination, Mia stood up and walked to the door. It was time to take back control. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. She was no longer going to shrink in the face of adversity. She was going to rise above it. Mia knew she couldn't walk away from this fight. She had already lost too much: her trust in her team, her belief in her leadership, and the respect she had worked so hard to earn. But the deeper the betrayal ran, the more she realized that the fight wasn't just about the project or the company. It was about reclaiming herself. She called David into her office that afternoon. The tension in the air was thick as he walked in, his face a mix of guilt and apprehension. "Mia, I'm sorry," he said, his voice quiet. Mia didn't flinch. "Sorry won't fix what you've done, David. You've undermined everything I've worked for." David's eyes dropped to the floor, his shoulders slumped. "I know. I didn't think it through. I was just trying to protect the project. By betraying me. Mia's voice was firm. You think I don't care about this project? You think I'm not doing my best? David looked up, pain in his eyes. I thought you were too inexperienced to handle the pressure. I didn't trust you. Mia's heart raced, but she kept her composure. You don't get to decide that. You don't get to decide whether I'm capable. You've lost my trust, David. And you've lost your place in this team. The words stung, but Mia felt a strange sense of relief. She was done playing the passive role. She was done hiding. She had made her decision. With David out of the picture, Mia took a step forward in her leadership. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she had taken back control. The project was still a mess, but she didn't care. She wasn't going to hide from the challenges anymore. She would lead with integrity, no matter what. Her next move was to bring the team together. She called a meeting, and as they gathered in the conference room, Mia took a deep breath. She wasn't going to pretend everything was fine. She was going to be honest. I know things have been hard, Mia began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. I've made mistakes, but I'm here to own them. I can't do this alone, and I need all of you to trust me. We need to trust each other. The room was silent for a moment, but then, one by one, the team members nodded, their faces softening. They were still hesitant, but there was a shift in the air. Mia wasn't just leading them anymore. She was with them. She was one of them. The true test of Mia's leadership came a week later. The project was at a critical juncture. The pressure from the higher-ups was mounting, and a decision had to be made, one that could either make or break everything. Mia stood in front of the team, her hands steady on the table, her gaze focused. We have two options. One is safe, but it will take longer and cost more. The other is risky. But if we pull it off, it could change everything. The room was silent, as everyone turned to Mia, waiting for her to make the call. She knew what she had to do. She wasn't going to play it safe. She wasn't going to back down now. Let's take the risk, she said, her voice unwavering. We'll do it right. We'll do it together. There was a moment of quiet, and then to her surprise, the team erupted into applause. They didn't need her to be perfect. They needed her to be decisive. And for the first time, Mia realized that was enough. The decision wasn't easy, but Mia had finally stepped into the leader she was always meant to be. The road ahead was still uncertain, but she knew she could face it, with strength, integrity, and the trust of her team. Days later, the higher-ups called Mia into a meeting. Her heart raced as she walked into the room, wondering what was about to happen. Had her decision been the right one? Had it all fallen apart? But when the CEO spoke, his words were unexpected. Mia, your decision was risky, but it paid off, he said, his voice genuine. The project is back on track, and it's because of your leadership. You've earned our respect. Keep pushing forward. For the first time, Mia allowed herself to feel proud. She had been tested, and she had come out stronger on the other side. She wasn't just a manager anymore. She was a leader. And for the first time, she believed it. As Mia walked out of the meeting, she took a moment to look out over the city. The weight of the past few months hung heavy on her, but it was no longer a burden. She had come through the storm, and now the path ahead seemed clearer than ever. She didn't have all the answers, but for the first time, she was okay with that. She didn't need to be perfect. She just needed to keep moving forward. Her phone buzzed with a message from Sam. You did it. Mia smiled, taking a deep breath. She had. And this was just the beginning. It had been a week since the meeting with the CEO, and the dust was beginning to settle. The project was well on its way, and the team, though still cautious, was beginning to trust Mia again. The tension that had once hung in the air had dissipated, replaced by a quiet focus. Mia spent most of her days in the conference room with her team, guiding them, but also allowing them the space to contribute their ideas. She had found a balance, a way to lead without smothering. Her presence wasn't just a reminder of authority anymore. It had become a symbol of stability and progress. As she walked to her desk that afternoon, she allowed herself a moment of reflection. She wasn't the same person who had walked into this company months ago. She had learned the hard way that leadership wasn't about perfection. It was about resilience. It was about taking risks, admitting mistakes, and above all, moving forward no matter how hard the road got. That evening, Mia found herself walking down the familiar hallway of the office building. The fluorescent lights overhead hummed softly, the air cool against her skin. She had done it. She had not only faced her fears and doubts, but had turned them into something powerful. When she stepped outside, the city was alive with energy, but Mia felt a sense of peace she hadn't known before. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. The world was still full of challenges, but now, Mia knew how to face them. And for the first time, she was truly at peace with who she was becoming. It wasn't long before Mia realized that the road to true leadership wasn't just about making the right decisions. It was about healing the wounds she hadn't realized were there. One afternoon, David, the man who had once betrayed her, walked into her office. Mia felt a tightness in her chest, the old memories rushing back. But this time, she didn't look away. She didn't shrink from the confrontation. "Mia, I owe you an apology," David said, his voice sincere. "I was wrong. I betrayed your trust, and I regret it every day. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I hope we can move forward." Mia looked at him for a long moment. She could feel the weight of the past, but she also knew that holding on to the past would only keep her from moving forward. "I'm not sure I can forgive you yet," Mia said, her voice steady, but there was no malice. "But I do appreciate your honesty, and I'm willing to try." David nodded, understanding. He knew that the road to redemption wasn't easy, but at least he had taken the first step. Mia wasn't ready to forget, but she was ready to move on. She wasn't going to let the betrayal define her. She wasn't going to let it shape her future. As the days went on, Mia's team slowly started to pull together. The awkwardness faded, replaced by a new sense of collaboration. Mia wasn't just leading from the front anymore, she was listening more, understanding her team's struggles, and offering her support when needed. The project began to take shape in ways she hadn't expected. Her vision had become their vision. Together they made decisions, solved problems, and found solutions. Mia no longer felt like an outsider in her own team. She had finally found her place. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of tension. But Mia knew that true leadership wasn't about controlling every aspect. It was about guiding people, inspiring them, and allowing them to grow. Mia stood at the window of her office, looking out at the skyline. The night was quiet, the city below humming with life. For the first time in years, Mia felt like she had found her true purpose. The project was nearly complete, and it was a success. But more than that, Mia had proven something to herself. She wasn't just capable of leading, she was capable of learning from her mistakes, of standing up in the face of fear, and of trusting others. She had faced the darkest parts of herself and emerged stronger. This wasn't just a victory for her, it was a victory for everyone who had ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or unheard. She was living proof that strength didn't always come from loud declarations or flawless execution. Sometimes it came from the quiet moments of reflection, from understanding one's own worth. Mia had learned that real strength was in vulnerability, in resilience, and in the quiet courage to keep moving forward. And that, she realized, was enough. Mia walked into the office for the last time that week, the air crisp with the anticipation of something new. The project had been completed, successfully and on time, but it wasn't just the project that had changed. She had. The woman who had walked into the office months ago, uncertain, hesitant, plagued by self-doubt, was gone. In her place stood someone who had fought for her voice, reclaimed her confidence, and learned the true meaning of leadership. As she walked through the hallways, she could feel the weight of her journey. Every challenge had led her here, to this moment of quiet realization. She was no longer afraid to lead, no longer afraid to be herself. She had earned her place, not by being perfect, but by staying true to her principles, even when the road was rough. Mia knew that this was just the beginning of her journey. She had taken the first steps toward becoming the leader she had always dreamed of being. And for the first time, she was ready to embrace what came next. Later that afternoon, Mia sat at her desk, looking out the window. The sky was clear, the sun slowly beginning to set, casting a golden hue over the city. It was quiet now. The hustle and bustle of the office had quieted down. For a moment, Mia allowed herself to reflect on everything that had happened. The doubts, the struggles, the betrayals, and the triumphs. Each step had led her to this moment. She had found her voice, and it had been enough. She had never imagined herself as a leader, but now she understood. Leadership wasn't about having all the answers. It was about learning, growing, and facing each challenge with grace and determination. It was about bringing others along with you, even when the path was uncertain. Mia smiled to herself. The journey wasn't over, but she had come so far. And she was ready for whatever came next. The phone rang, breaking the quiet moment. Mia picked it up, knowing exactly who it was. "Mia, I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you." Sam's voice came through the phone, calm and sincere. "You've come a long way, and I knew you had it in you." Mia's heart warmed at the words. "Thanks, Sam. I couldn't have done it without you." Sam chuckled lightly. "You did the work, Mia. You found your strength. You'll keep surprising yourself." Mia smiled, her fingers tracing the edge of the desk. "I guess I will." As the call ended, Mia sat back in her chair, taking a deep breath. For the first time, she felt truly at peace with herself. There was no more doubt, no more fear. Just the quiet certainty that she had become the person she was always meant to be. The days that followed were filled with new opportunities and challenges, and Mia took on more responsibility, but it never felt overwhelming. She had found her rhythm, and the people around her now respected her as the leader she had become. She led with compassion, with understanding, and with the knowledge that her journey wasn't just about success, but about the people she worked with, the people she lifted up along the way. Each decision she made was informed by the lessons she had learned. She listened more, spoke less, and trusted her team to do what they did best. The future was still unknown, but Mia no longer felt afraid of it. She knew that whatever came next, she could face it. With courage, resilience, and a steady heart, Mia had become the leader she had always been capable of being. Mia stood at the door, looking back at the office that had been the stage of her transformation. She wasn't the same person who had walked in here months ago. She had faced her fears, her doubts, and her past. And she had come out stronger. With one final look, Mia stepped out, into the unknown. The future was waiting, and she was ready for it. She smiled softly to herself. Whatever came next, she was ready. "You never know what you're capable of," she whispered to herself, "until you face the storm." And for the first time in her life, Mia knew she could weather any storm that came her way.